What is this? Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand. I'm standing here with a briefcase in my hand containing some kind of a message to me from some kind of a unknown force of the universe. Let's see what this one actually contains. Oh, please God, no. The worst of 1997. Dear God. Ah yes, 1997. For me, it has always been the greatest of movie years. I have so many fond memories of 1997. It is the best, periodly the best. But there is also a downside to this. Well, the fact is that 1997 is the second worst year of movies also. If you just look at the lower end of the spectrum from 1997, it is fucking horrible. I can only think of a single year that has produced even more horrendously awful movies than 1997, and that is 1994. Pray to God I will never have to do that list ever. The movies on this list had to have its original release date somewhere between January 1st and December 31st of 1997. It can be any country, it can be any genre, anything else goes. Let's begin with some dishonorable mentions, shall we? An American Werewolf in Paris. Neither campy or clever, but filled with horrendously deadpan acting and very lackluster special effects, and on top of all things, it is boring as hell, and this is just one of these extremely subpar movies that nobody even remembers coming out. I had almost forgotten about it. A Life Less Ordinary. Danny Boyle followed up his monster success with Trainspotting with this weird road movie supernatural comedy which has no idea what it wants to be, is super boring and confusing, and it does contain one or two okay performances, but it just is so confusing and it's so uninteresting. Jeez. Fire Down Below. This was the first Steven Seagal movie that didn't get a cinematic release in Sweden. It was The Shape of Things to Come. However, comparing this one to the movies he has done since, let's say, 2003, it is still not as terrible as that, but this is a horrendously boring Steven Seagal movie with all the environmental bullshit from On Deadly Ground, but however not having the scope to back it up at least. Jeez, this is boring. Money Talks. The Fifth Element opened up my eyes to the existence of Chris Tucker. Thank you for that, I guess. And his outlandish gimmick did work in this one. However, having Chris Tucker as a outlandish DJ in The Fifth Element worked because he was a relatively small part of that movie. Putting him in the lead alongside of a very unfunny Charlie Sheen in a very, very boring and obnoxious action comedy is not the recipe for success. It is horrendously annoying, and you most of all want Chris Tucker to die a horrible death in front of his family. Turbulence. Turbulence is a horrible mishmash of old and used and abused cliches of the airplane disaster formula that has been made far better in lots of other movies. It is horrendously unoriginal, and despite Ray Liotta being here and at least adding some prestige and star power to the entire thing, you're just so bored, and everything is so dumb. You can always find comfort, however, in that there are two actual sequels to this one that is even worse. God help us. I know what you did last summer. I'm not gonna lie to you, I know that there are people who liked this movie. And it came off of the back of, you know, Scream and Kevin Williams' success and blah blah blah. And the fact that I really hate slashers speaks volume, that despite this being a rather, you know, big budgeted version of it all, and the story does have some okay elements to it, doesn't help the fact that this is a completely uninteresting movie that, because it was released just 1 year after Scream, it took me a sort of, well, that's dumb, that's exactly what Scream did, only Scream did it, you know, in a smart and interesting way. This is just, ugh. You could argue that the performances are okay, but to me the movie has almost zero redeeming qualities. And I fucking hate the ending. Now, before we get started with this cavalcade of hell, aka the worst movies of 1997, I just want to address the elephant in the room, or the nipples on the batsuit. Why is not Batman and Robin in this movie? The answer is pretty simple. I think that Batman and Robin is a terribly awful movie, but it is so bad that it actually, you know, goes the other way around, becomes sort of, well, it becomes a little bit funny actually. It is extremely campy, it's bad, it has terrible dialogue, but the more I watch it, the more I sort of, how much better can this get? And they say, well, I got you covered there, buddy. It is an awful, horrendously bad Batman movie, but it features so much silliness and so much over-the-top nonsense that you actually at some point get tired and said, okay, you got me, just do your thing. Just as an example, if somebody said to me that you can watch Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice or Batman and Robin, I would say I would watch Batman and Robin. Is it because I think Batman and Robin is a better movie than Batman vs Superman? No. But because this movie is so horrendously dumb entertainment and Batman vs Superman is just a sort of boring and uninteresting and ultimately botched version of a movie that everybody wanted, and when they got it they got really sad about it. If you would compare those two, Batman and Robin is the worst movie, but it is also the more entertaining and more sort of silly of them, so I would pick that, even though Batman vs Superman is a better movie. Everybody okay? Great. Let's take a look at the actual list, shall we? Oh god. This list will be presented by my stunt-double. Oh, you can see how happy he is, how very excited he is to be doing this. Number 10. Mortal Kombat. Annihilation. Is this the Asylum version of Mortal Kombat? The F? You can't argue that Mortal Kombat isn't an entertaining, dumb nonsense movie. It had one of the most kick-ass soundtracks of all time, it had dumb fights, it wasn't, you know, a very good movie, but at least it was a movie. This is not. Done with a significantly lower budget and acting that is so horrendously awful, it makes the original movie look like carnage in comparison. I mean, that carnage. It has boring fights, it has horrendously awful special effects, it has aged so god awful that you kind of surprising. Are you sure this isn't a rib or some kind? Is this a joke? It's awful. So at least it's over rather quickly, but this movie is almost so bad it's good territory, but not quite. It actually goes, you know, the other way around also, because it also is so boring. Ooh, we have 9 more. Number 9. Oh, you're gonna like this one. The Postman. Now, for a number of years, The Postman was the most hated movie I had ever seen. I hated it more than anything else. Today, I have actually seen, you know, about almost, what is it, 90 or 95 movies that are worse than The Postman, but for a time it was the worst of all time. It is still a very boring and horrendously cheesy movie that somehow could have worked. It was based on a book that had a lot of mainstream attention, and the story is really fascinating and the story is really interesting. However, Kevin Costner, who wrote, starred, directed, produced, I think he also wrote the music to the whole thing, and I also think he made a coffee to all the cast members, didn't have any filters around him. He didn't have anybody who could, tell him, Kevin, we shouldn't do this. It is so boring. I love post-apocalyptic movies. It is my bread and butter. But surprise, surprise, if you're making a movie like this, a 3-hour epic, and then ending it on a damp, wet fart and what is maybe one of the cheesiest and most stupid endings of all time, then I cannot defend this one whatsoever. It is so lame. How did you fuck this up? It is incredible. This is one of these movies I kind of wished Hollywood would try to do a remake of. If they could, do it the proper way, I think it could have been a really effective, and it could have been a really special movie. Now it is a universally panned movie that almost has no backers whatsoever. It's astonishingly how so much money could produce so little. Number 8. Peacekeeper. Well, you can't have a list video with the top 10 worst of so-and-so year without having at least one Dolph Lundgren movie in it. Peacekeeper it is for this one. Peacekeeper is a very cheap, very boring, very ludicrously awful Dolph Lundgren movie, as you do, which contains some obvious stunt works where people who get shots actually jump off buildings, and I can't unsee it. It has the usual bad guys, stealing nuclear launch codes and what have you, some shit. It is not very good, and we also have a moment where the bad guys maybe pull off one of the dumbest decisions I have seen in a action movie ever, and that's saying something. If the movie wasn't seriously going off the rails, by that point, after that, it was just, please let this one end. This is bad, you guys. It is not good. Number 7. Speed 2, Cruise Control. God, I was so hyped for this one. Granted, I wasn't too big of a fan of Sandra Bullock. Well, at least it's going to be a great follow-up to Speed, which had come out a couple of years earlier, and we were pumped and hyped for this one, especially since they had, almost quadrupled the budget. We were wrong. The key elements to Speed was that it was a bus that was speeding through a populated downtown of LA and, the freeways and all that thing. This was an ocean liner tagging along in a, relatively slow speed on an open fucking ocean. It is dumb. It was slow, it was dumb, it was obnoxious. However, I will forever be grateful to Willem Dafoe for making a super over-the-top bad guy that was at least fun to watch. But Jason Patric replacing Keanu Reeves. What the fuck did you think? You can make the argument that Keanu Reeves isn't the most charismatic person in the history of the world, but compared to Keanu Reeves, Jason Patric is a white bread on top of another white bread, basically. Whew. This was a dreadful, slow-moving, plodding, uninteresting disaster movie that just bombed terribly, and Sandra Bullock has apologized for it on a couple of occasions. That is always funny when they do that. It does have one of the biggest explosions recorded in history, but apart from that, it is just so boring. Number 6, Lost Highway. The movie with the highest IMDb score on this entire list, and I do understand why in some sense. There are many people who really appreciate the work of David Lynch. I am really not one of them, but I'm always fascinated by his movies. I think Wild at Heart is a good movie. I like Dune. I think that Mulholland Drive has parts of it that is really good. But he does not get a pass on Lost Highway. This is just a movie that tries to be artsy and difficult without having anything beneath. You could argue that Mulholland Drive has something beneath its surreal surface. This one has not. This is just an excuse to David Lynch to make a movie about absolutely nothing and cashing in stuff at different film festivals. And I feel that the world is just filled with people who say, you just don't understand it. Yes, I do understand it. That's why this movie is on this list. Because it fucking sucks. It is a boring, slow, sluggish, horrendously strange and inconsequential movie that is just refuses to end. Oh, it boggles my mind how numbingly uninteresting and dull and pretentiously boring this movie is. I have no idea why this movie has a higher IMDb movie than these ones. Can anybody explain that? I sure fucking can't. Am I going crazy here? What the fuck? Number 5, TNT. 'Cause I'm TNT, I'm dynamite. Sorry about that. I tried to get a little excited there. Whew, Jesus. If you've never heard of TNT, well, be happy. Just be happy. I actually rented this movie because it had a badass cover to it, and it kind of looked, well, that's kind of be a fun action movie. It wasn't. It was a direct-to-video cheap action movie about, you know, some guy who didn't want to be some kind of a special ops, and then he is, you know, and then his, you know, former employees try to track down him. Robert Patrick is in this one for some reason. At least Peacekeeper did have the decency of having some stakes in it. But when you have these wooden characters that you don't care about, and you have bad action sequences that, you know, look like somebody's home video, it just makes you sad, and you just want the movie to end. And thankfully it did at some point, but it was way too late. Number 4, 9 millimeter. 9 millimeter is a Swedish action drama about thug life and you know, criminals who tries to, you know, become legit or stuff like that. It's like a terrible attempt at making a Scorsese movie in a Swedish context, and it really doesn't work. It has soap opera level of acting, and it has so, you know, on the nose. Look what he did there. That was bad. Whew. This was terrible. It is one of the single worst Swedish movies I have ever seen, but lo and behold, we will have one more on this list. Oh no, I just thought of that one. Fuck! Number 3, The Beverly Hills Ninja. Okay, so people seems to like Chris Farley. In America, he's considered some kind of a comedic icon. I've only seen about, maybe 2 or 3 movies with Chris Farley for some reason, and I have not really liked any of them. This, one of his last movies before his death, is a sad story. He is a clumsy ninja who tries to do ninja stuff in Beverly Hills, and it is exactly as terrible as you would think it is. This movie mostly made me sad, and it mostly made me annoyed. I don't think I laughed a single time in this entire movie. They even have Chris Rock in it, and not even he is funny in this one. How the fuck is that even possible? Well, by the way, he was in and why the fuck isn't Chris Rock funny in movies? Not to speak ill of the dead, but I don't think Chris Farley was that funny. And this is just one of these very sad comedies that just has bad slapstick combined with a really unfunny script. It's baffling how unfunny this one is. Number 2, Reine och Mimmi i fjällen. So you have a long-running Swedish soap opera like Days of Our Lives or something like that, but you instead, insert bank robberies and UFOs and cults and a final episode entire thing where everybody gets blown up by a crazy cult leader, which is a weird but oddly satisfying way of concluding a soap opera. But in the middle of this, they did have a theatrical release of a sort of spin-off of the entire thing. It's remarkably bad. It is both a soap opera and a bad attempt at comedy and spy thriller at the same time. Reine och Mimmi i fjällen is one of the single worst Swedish movies I have ever seen. It is everything that is wrong with Swedish filmmaking. It is just so formulaic. It is just so short-sighted. It is just, it's testicular cancer in movie form. I mean, the poster just screams, whoa, wacky movie. But the movie just screams desperation and horrible acting and just the death of entertainment. What is life? Can life even exist after this? Jesus Christ, we have one more. My God. Oh God. And number 1, Mr. Magoo. Oh no, I have to get a new stunt-double. Don't do it. Or something. Think Beverly Hills Ninja, but think that it is also a family picture, and also add that it moves slower than fucking erosion. Then you get Mr. Magoo. Based on the cartoon, Mr. Magoo is horrendously unfunny, despite having Leslie Nielsen, but it also proves that Leslie Nielsen only works when he's allowed to play the straight man and not being, funny. Back in 1997, I saw a trailer for Mr. Magoo, and the trailer looked hysterically funny. It looked like it was such a dumb slapstick romp that I was sort of, well, I'm excited for this one. And then I read a review about it that just took up the thing that it really had, in the trailer, this one looks like a funny movie, but it doesn't show how bum-crushingly boring it is, with the setups for the, slapsticks that you see. And then the slapstick had already died by the time it hits, so it just tries to trick you. Then I said, well, okay, I'm not gonna see this one. It is difficult to properly explain how bad this movie is. But bad comedies You can get stuff out of hokey horror movies. You can get something out of bad dramas. You can get something out of bad action movies. You can even get something out of, you know, bad thrillers. But bad comedies that are really bad, that has nothing, it is so soul-crushingly bad that it is not possible to even comprehend it. When I actually saw the movie, I was sad. I've always loved Leslie Nielsen. It was just so lame. It was just so Disney live action formula as it ever can be. It was soulless. It at least could have the decency of being horrendously offensive or something like that, but it wasn't even that. They actually had a retraction for that one afterwards. Sorry, people who are blind. Or something like that. Mr. Magoo is one of the worst movies I've seen in my entire life. To its credit, I'm actually gonna say one good thing about it. It did have one line that at least made me smile a little bit. It is when two of the villains are, you know, talking about their plans, and he has the paper and he says, I think we got away scot-free. There is nothing here about the diamond theft. That's yesterday's newspaper, the other person says, and he goes, oh. But apart from that, every single attempt at a joke in this movie made me angry. Every attempt at this movie of entertainment made me want to cut my heart out with a spoon. This is the pinnacle of bad late 90s Disney live action. Fuck me. Whew, that was a rough one. Well, I'll see you next time when I will be reviewing so-and-so from, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.